Ramanujan for G is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
So hello students, we have seen some basic properties of hydrogen, some chemical or physical and chemical properties of hydrogen, and also what are the different isotopes of hydrogen, their relative abundance, and the other things that those things we have seen. And at the last, we have seen this question that I'll again start with the same question. The question is the comment on the reactions of dihydrogen with chlorine, sodium, and copper 2 oxide. It means by looking at this, what we should know by the chemical reactivity of hydrogen, that whether this hydrogen, dihydrogen will react when it is, sorry, when it some other chemicals are there in presence of different types of chemical, how the dihydrogen will react, and the react then what kind of products it will form. The first part is chlorine. So chlorine, what we know, chlorine is a non-metal, and when a non-metal reacts with hydrogen, we have seen earlier in the redox reactions, then usually chlorine is a electronegative, highly electronegative element. It's a non-metal, so it will accept electron, and it will accept electrons, so hydrogen will be oxidized. So what will we see? So Cl minus will be formed and H plus will be formed. And H plus and Cl minus, when they are together, actually they are not ionic compound. There is a covalent bond between them, but there is a high ionic character as well to this covalent bond. So HCl will be formed, is what we know. So dihydrogen reduces chlorine. So what we say, dihydrogen reduces chlorine, or chlorine oxidizes dihydrogen to Cl minus. So dihydrogen reduces chlorine to Cl minus ion, and itself gets oxidized to H plus ion to form hydrogen chloride, or this is also the hydrochloric acid that we know. An electron pair is shared between hydrogen and chlorine, leading to the formation of a covalent molecule or covalent bond. So a electron pair is shared between hydrogen and chlorine, though it is shared, but it has a high ionic character. Why it has very high ionic character? Because the difference in electronegativity of chlorine and hydrogen is very high. Or in the other way, if you look at the Fazan's rule, even if you think this way, the hydrogen gives its electron, donates its electron to chlorine, and the chlorine will become chloride and the hydrogen become H plus. And what will you see now? The hydrogen is a very small, it's a proton, and we have seen how small it is. Is very small in size, and because of very small in size, charge to size ratio is very high, and because of that, what will happen? The electron, it will attract electron cloud of chloride towards itself, and because of that attraction, what will we see? Some of the electron density will be shared. It will enter the boundary of hydrogen or H plus, a hydrogen atom, and thus we will see there is some covalent character. So both way you can define the bonding in HCl. Usually what we see, HCl is a covalent molecule. It has certain very high ionic character. Now the reaction of hydrogen with the sodium, and what we know here, sodium is a metal. It is a very electropositive metal, highly electropositive metal. And electropositive metal means what? It will donate its electron, and when it donates its electron, so that electron will be accepted by hydrogen, because we know hydrogen is a non-metal, and so the electron will be transferred from sodium to hydrogen, and there that it will lead to the formation of an ionic compound. An ionic compound Na plus, though it is also a small cation, but it is much larger in size than H plus ion. And so this compound is an ionic compound. And what we see, sodium hydride Na plus H minus, this exists as this. So Na plus and H minus. So Na plus H minus you can write, or NaH. And when dihydrogen reacts with copper 2 oxide, copper 2 oxide, when you will look at the electrochemical series, you will see the copper is below hydrogen. It means reactivity of copper is less, means the copper reducing power of copper, reducing power. On another way, if you look at the electron donating tendency, that is much easier to understand. Electron donating tendency of copper is less than that of hydrogen. So electron donating tendency of hydrogen is more than copper. It means what will happen if you have copper 2 oxide and you keep hydrogen there? Hydrogen has a stronger electron donating tendency, so hydrogen will give its electron to copper And so copper will reduce, copper will become metallic copper, elemental copper, copper 2 plus will become elemental copper. And so what will happen there? So dihydro, there will be formation of Cu, and in that formation, what the hydrogen that has after donating electron which has become H plus, actually that H plus combines with oxide ion, that O minus, to form H2O water. So we see in that chemical reaction formation of metallic copper plus water molecule. Looking at the usage of hydrogen, but we know it's a very useful element, and there are why it is useful. If you look at our structure, our body, more than 65%, around 70% of our body is hydrogen. Even some kind of hydrocarbons, the proteins, other things all contain hydrogen. So what we know is hydrogen use, other than those things, our survival, what we see there is other use in our day-to-day life. And the largest single use of hydrogen is the synthesis of ammonia. And ammonia, we know it is required for the synthesis of fertilizers, particularly urea. Nowadays we are using the formation, the synthesis of urea depends on the synthesis of ammonia. And other than that, we also use nitric acid as a chemical in very many reactions, even in the metallurgical process, sometimes we use. So dihydrogen is used in manufacture of vanaspati by hydrogenation of polyunsaturated vegetable oils. We know, so vegetable oils like soybean and cotton seeds oils are there, and after hydrogenation, what we see hydrogenation is they are unsaturated fats, and those unsaturated fats means there were double bonds between carbon and carbon atoms, and double bonds between carbon and carbon, or double or triple bond is also unsaturation. So double bonds, mostly when there is double bond between two carbon atoms in this fatty acids, we add hydrogen atoms to that double bonds, and this process is called hydrogenation. So after hydrogenation, what we will get saturated fats, and saturated fats that we call vegetable oils. So that is also there for us, and the edible purposes it is available. So hydrogen is also used in manufacturing of bulk organic materials, particularly methanol. So what we know, this reaction we have seen earlier. So carbon monoxide gas plus hydrogen, this carbon dioxide, hydrogen reacts with carbon monoxide gas. Sorry if I have said carbon dioxide, the carbon monoxide gas. So when hydrogen reacts with carbon monoxide in presence of cobalt catalyst, we obtain methanol. Not only methanol, hydrogen is used in formation of other organic chemicals as well. So one example, a representative example we have seen is the formation of methanol. Hydrogen is also widely used in the manufacture of metal hydrides. As we have seen, metal hydrides means the metal and hydrogen compounds, and some type of metal hydrides. The examples we will see today itself, and we will see metal hydrides when we will study that. So hydrogen is also used in the preparation of hydrochloric acid. We have just seen in the previous question how the hydrochloric acid can be formed from hydrogen. And this is a very highly useful chemical. You know, it is available in the laboratories, at your desk. It is very important chemical in very many of chemical transformations. Some of them you will see yourself when you will go in, you will do your laboratory courses. Hydrogen is used as a rocket fuel in space research. Also, as in the space research, hydrogen is used as rocket fuels. If you use solid or liquid hydrogens, and we know hydrogen is combustible, so you can use it as a fuel as well. And if you are melting it or you are solidifying it, means it will take a smaller volume. And so you can, in a smaller volume, you can have lot of fuel and the material that is stored there. So atomic hydrogen and oxyhydrogen torches, there is oxyhydrogen torches that people use in cutting and welding purposes. Usually these hydrogens, atomic hydrogen are used there, hydrogens will be there, and the hydrogen will combine with oxygen gas. And similarly in that reaction, water molecules are formed, that we know that hydrogen and oxygen, when they react, they will form water molecules. And in this process, high energy, how the amount of energy is released, and that energy is used to increase the local temperature, and that local temperature is actually used in cutting and melting purposes, cutting and welding purposes. So dihydrogen is used in fuel cells for generating electrical energy. Fuel cells, what are the fuel cells? Some structure I think somewhere I have shown. Anyway, if you do not remember, that is not a problem. It's not part of it. Studying in details is not part of your syllabus. So you should just you should know fuel cell. Fuel cells, when what we use, one kind of cell when we use for generating electricity, and that electricity for the battery and even driving electric motor. So there we can also use hydrogen. So hydrogen is, we provide hydrogen. Hydrogen splits into protons and electrons. Electrons goes to the outer circuits. Proton gets transferred from one part to another part, so anode to cathode, and there that electron it is going. So electricity will be generated, and there are some membranes to transport H plus from one part to the another part. And likewise, there the H plus and electrons now they combine and they form hydrogen gas. These kind of things people are use these devices in the hydrogen, but this is which is called the fuel cell or hydrogen fuel cell. And hydrogen does not produce any pollution and release greater energy per unit mass of fuel in comparison to gasoline and other fuels. So what will happen if you burn gasoline? The gasoline also contains carbon and even the carbon and some other impurities as well. So if you burn gasoline, you will find mostly the formation of carbon dioxide. If oxygen is in adequate amount, if oxygen is not in inadequate amount, so carbon monoxide gas will also be formed. Along with the carbon monoxide gas and other gas, some impurities that we put in gasoline, we also get NOx and SOx gases that are formed. However, when you burn hydrogen, you will have water molecules, and water molecule is not an impurity. It is already there in large amount in our atmosphere. And even if the water molecule is there in large excess, it condenses very fast, and so it will precipitate even if it is there. But for CO2, it is such kind of things are not there. We need much lower temperature and high pressure to condense carbon dioxide gas, and that is why the concentration of carbon dioxide is continuously increasing in atmosphere because of the excess use of fossil fuels. Now coming to hydrides. So as I said, we will see hydrides. So what are the hydrides? So hydrides means earlier usually what we see metal hydrides. Metal hydrides means hydride usually like nitride oxide when this one someone says. So you will think that it is H minus ions only. However, in case of hydrogen, it is not only H minus ion that we call as hydrides. It's all compounds of hydrogen are called hydrides. Whether hydrogen forms compounds with the metals or non-metals. H minus, if I say H minus, it will means it will form a compound with only metals, even those metals which are highly electropositive and more electropositive than H plus. And we have just seen the copper is electropositivity of copper is less than that of hydrogen. So highly electropositive metals can form H minus ions when it will react with the hydrogen or dihydrogen. However, not only this H minus ions we considered as hydrides, as we see H2 minus sulfide, N3 minus nitride, O2 minus oxide, so superoxide, peroxide. The way these names goes earlier, this is what we believe. So H minus hydride means H minus ions. Nowadays, this definition is changed. So dihydrogen combines with almost all the elements other than noble gases to form binary compound. Almost all means most of the compounds. Almost all I one cannot mean most of the compounds of the periodic table other than noble gases and few transition metals. I say to form binary compounds, and these binary compounds are called hydrides. So binary compounds means if you know CH4, which is also a binary compound. The binary compound is compound of carbon, one element, and hydrogen, that is another element. The compounds of two different elements are called binary compounds. Similarly, if you know C2H6, C2H6 is also a binary compound because though there are two atoms of carbon that is involved in the formation of C2H6 molecule and six atoms of hydrogen, but this compound is found between only two elements and the carbon and hydrogen. So there are many examples that you will encounter in your even day-to-day life, even in your while you will study different when we will study even the group chemistry. So B2H6 is another example. Ammonia, water, they are all binary compounds. And the binary compounds, even MgH2, NaH, they are all binary compounds. So if E is the symbol of an element, then hydride of that element can be expressed as EHX. And EHX when E is metal. Usually, when E is metal, we find EHX. X could be any number of, and like example MgH2, NaH. Here H is X is 1. In this case, MgH2, H is 2. Or hydrogen can also form a compound of this form EMHN. EMHN, like here B2H6. So B2H6 or CH4, M is 1 and N is 4. Or you can see even many other compounds like H2O, H2O, one can represent it as OH2, NH3, that we know, the other examples that we see. So the hydrides, there are mainly three classes of hydrides. Means the hydrides can be divided into three different classes. The first class is called ionic or saline or salt-like hydrides. Ionic hydride, we know, so the metal like metal primary S block metal forms ionic halides. Ionic halides means the metal ion will be there and H minus ions will be there, and there can exist as a in the free form. Even you can extract H minus and Na or M plus ions from there, or metal ions from there. Or they are also called saline or salt-like hydrides. Salt-like because they are salt, and so they are called salt-like hydrides. But and now the covalent or molecular hydrides, another form. Covalent, we know the compound, the ionic bond between hydrogen and the another element is the covalent bond. In ionic halides, the bond between the hydrogen that is there, and the metal is the ionic bond. And ionic bond means the metal electron will be transferred to the hydrogen. So hydrogen is H minus ion, exists as in H minus ion. Now the metallic or non-metallic or stoichiometric hydrides. And metallic or non-stoichiometric hydrides. As I said, metallic hydrides or non-stoichiometric hydrides. You should remember that ionic or saline hydrides also there the metals atoms are involved. However, metallic hydrides that we define is slightly different. Metallic hydrides, ionic or saline hydrides, mostly S block elements are involved in the formation of ionic or saline hydrides, which are ionic. That you know, ionic means cations and anions have separate existence, but in metallic or non-stoichiometric hydrides, they are different. And also ionic hydrides, they are stoichiometric hydrides. But in metallic hydrides, or they are not stoichiometric, we will see what are they. So ionic hydrides, let us come to the ionic hydrides. These stoichiometric compounds of these are stoichiometric compounds of hydrogens, ionic hydrides of dihydrogen formed from highly electropositive S block elements. S block elements, what we know, first group and second group. Alkali metals and alkaline earth metals are in the S block. If you look at the periodic table, first two groups, first group and second group, they are S block elements because they are. If you write their electronic configuration, last electron will go into their S subset. So that is why they are S block elements. And they are stoichiometric. Stoichiometric means simply whatever the ratio. If you look at the number of atoms in that compound, number of atoms, ratio of the atoms, metals and hydrogen, it will be a whole number, the ratio. Or maybe 1 is, it could be 1 is to 2 or 2 is to 1, whatever way, it will be a stoichiometric. It's a simple whole number. So significant covalent character is found in the lighter metal hydrides such as LiH, BH2 and MgH2. Why there is a significant covalent character? This is because that we know Fajans rule. And Fajans rule, if the metal ion is smaller in size, what we have, it has high charge to size ratio, and the effective nuclear charge, it means the effective nuclear charge in that cation, metal cation, will be very high. And because of that effective nuclear charge, high effective nuclear charge, it will attract electrons or electrons from the anion. And that because of that attraction, electrons which exist as that what we consider electron density, it will be shifted towards the metal, and that is shifting, that polarization, which is also called the polarization in scientific terms. So that polarization actually causes the covalent character in ionic compounds. In fact, what if you look at BH2 and MgH2, barium hydride and magnesium hydride, they are polymeric in structure. And magnesium hydride is why polymeric. One of the one kind of property of covalent compounds is they can be polymeric. So all the polymers that you see in whether it is in nature or man-made like polythene and others, the bond between different monomers is always a covalent bond. So if there is some polymer formation is there for a monomer unit, it means the bond is covalent bond there. So BH2 and MgH2 forms polymeric structure. It means what we know. There is another information that we can obtain, and that is means MgH2. The bond is there between them is covalent bond. So means it may not be purely covalent, but it has definitely certain covalent character or covalent significant covalent character. So this hydrides means ionic hydrides, though they are ionic hydrides, and some of them, as I said, they have covalent character, significant covalent character as well, as we saw in the case of BH2, MgH2, or lithium hydride (LiH). So these are crystalline, non-volatile. Crystalline means they form crystals. They are non-volatiles means they do not evaporate at room temperature, and they are polymeric, are non-conducting in solid state, and they are also non-conducting in solid state. Means in the solid form all the ions, cations and anions are strongly bound together, and they are not freely available to move from one place to another place to conduct electricity. So we know whether it is electrons or ions, whenever they move they'll conduct electricity. However, in the molten state, if you melt them or you make a solution of them, they conduct electricity, because the molten state, what will have now, these ions will have certain fluidity, and because of that fluidity, they can move from one place to another place, from one part to another part, and if they are moving, so the conduction of electricity will also happen. Similarly, if they are in solution, if they are dissolved and they are in water, aqueous solution, their aqueous solution, if they can be formed for different hydride, it can also conduct electricity. And this, for example, if you know this hydride 2H minus, ionic hydride means, as we know, H minus. Ionic hydride means the existence of H minus, and 2H minus melts that way. When it melts, it forms H2 gas and two electrons, and these electrons can also move and conduct electricity. Saline hydrides react violently with water to produce dihydrogen gas. Saline hydrides means ionic hydrides, another name. So the saline hydrides or the salt-like hydrides, they violently react with water like KH. If you put KH into water, it will violently react, it will produce hydrogen gas and NaOH, which is a base. Sorry, this is KOH. This is KH, so this should be KOH. I'm very sorry. Or if there was, if this is NaOH, so that this should be NaH. So example, let us just see KH plus water or NaH plus water, it will violently react and will produce hydrogen gas plus base or alkali, that we know. Stability of hydrides decreases, the stability of ionic hydrides decreases down the group, and group means group 1 and group 2 s block elements that we saw forms ionic hydrides, so that this stability of these ionic hydrides decreases down the group. And lithium hydrides is rather unreactive at moderate temperature with Cl2 or O2. So lithium hydride LiH doesn't react with Cl2 or oxygen at room temperature, so it is used in synthesis of other useful hydrides. So since it is stable and doesn't react easily with chlorine or oxygen which is there in large amount in atmosphere. So what we do, we use Al2Cl6 aluminum chloride, and when aluminum chloride can react with LiH to form lithium aluminum hydride. And this lithium aluminum hydride, we know it's a reducing agent, and it has large or huge applications in organic chemistry as a reducing agent. So you should remember this is lithium aluminum hydride as a reducing agent, its application in organic chemistry. So lithium hydride plus B2H6, it also forms lithium borohydride LiBH4. This is lithium aluminum hydride, lithium borohydride. This is also a reducing agent. There are other applications of these hydrides as well. Like here, what we know, the hydrogen is in large amount. The mass percentage of hydrogen is also quite good, and so one can think it as a possible hydrogen storage material. And here in this area also people has worked, and there are some research that is still going in this area as well. So since hydrogen is a gas, there is a problem with the storage of hydrogen, and that because if you want to use hydrogen as a fuel, you have so you should have enough mass of hydrogen in a smaller volume. That is called a storage. Enough, and because when you burn it, you will get large amount of energy as well. So, since hydrogen, the lightest element, its conversion or its condensation or even anti-sublimation is not that easy. So what people have thought, let us absorb this hydrogen or let us react this hydrogen with other materials so that its mass percentage is still very high, and that material we can use, we can extract hydrogen on our own use uh, later on. And this lithium borohydride, so if you heat lithium borohydride, you can also get hydrogen there. So because of the decomposition. So this is one other applications that we have seen. Now let us look into the covalent hydrides. So dihydrogen forms molecular compounds with most of the p block elements. So most of the p block elements, we know hydrogen forms compounds, and example we know water, ammonia, all the hydrocarbons, whether they are saturated or unsaturated hydrocarbons, hydrofluoric acid, hydrochloric acid, means hydroiodic acid, hydrochloric acid, they are all hydrides, and hydrides of p block elements, non-metals. Other than pH3, you know, phosphine gas, it is also a hydride. Silanes, they're all hydrides. Germanes. So hydrogen forms reacts with p block elements to form covalent hydrides. Why they are called covalent hydrides? Because the bond between hydrogen and the other elements, the p block elements, is primarily covalent bond. In the ionic halides, we have seen some cases there is significant covalent character, but the primarily the bond between hydrogen and the metal s block metal was ionic bond. Here the bond between the p block elements and hydrogen is primarily covalent bond. These bonds may also have ionic character because of the difference in electronegativity of the two atoms, but that is a different thing. Certain ionic character is there, but bond is primarily covalent. So they are called covalent hydrides, or other name is molecular hydrides, because they exist as molecules. They do not exist as ions or separate atoms or this kind of separate entities. They have one entire molecule has a separate existence, so they are also called molecular hydrides. Note here that hydrogen compounds of non-metals have also been considered as hydride for convenience. So as I said earlier, the compounds of hydrogen with non-metals is also nowadays they are also considered as hydrides. Earlier people were thinking that compounds of hydrogen with only metals will be hydrides, like nitrides, oxides, the way we have defined, where the oxidation state of hydrogen is -1. But nowadays, even if the oxidation state of hydrogen is +1, people call such compounds as hydrides. And in the case of p block elements, here all the examples that we see, the oxidation state of hydrogen is +1. So irrespective of oxidation state of hydrogen in different compounds, we can say those compounds simply as a one under one name, that is hydride. So being covalent in character, they are volatile compounds. So they are volatile compounds, and how the volatility comes because of the intermolecular or interionic attractions. These things we have seen when we studied solid, liquid, and gaseous states. So just to explain here, I will say that because of these compounds are molecular compounds, or these hydrides are molecular hydrides, and so these molecules, the molecules usually are neutral, and their attraction or the interaction between them, these two molecules, is generally weaker attractions. The strongest attraction between them could be the hydrogen bond, which is shown by only few of very selective compounds. But this, because of these weak interactions, their melting and boiling points are high, and so they are sorry, melting and boiling points are low. I'm very sorry. Because of the weak electrostatic attraction between molecules, the melting and boiling points are low, and since melting and boiling points are low, they are volatile. Means they will evaporate at room temperature even if you don't provide any extra heat. So slowly, like even if you put water, keep water in some vessel, and after some time you see all the water has gone away into the atmosphere. When the wet clothes, the water is already there, they're dry because of the evaporation. This suggests that water is a volatile liquid. And if you have salt, it will not escape, it will not go into atmosphere. If 1 kg of salt you have kept, even if in the open atmosphere, and you come after 1 month, it will still weigh 1 kilogram. It will not, its mass will not be reduced because it is non-volatile. So these hydrides are further classified, means the covalent hydrides are further classified according to the relative number of electrons and bonds in their Lewis structure, and whether these bonds or electrons in that Lewis structure, electrons on the central atom is less than the complete octet, means that octet of the central atom is complete or not, and even if it is complete, does it have a lone pair? So based on that, the covalent hydrides are divided into three different classes, subgroups, and these are called electron deficient hydrides. One is electron deficient hydrides, then electron precise hydrides, and electron rich hydrides. Electron deficient hydrides means, you understand, electron deficient hydrides means the octet of central atom will not be complete. It will be electron deficient. It requires certain electrons, and since its octet is not complete, it is electron deficient, so it will always be looking to accept electrons from some other chemicals, and so they behave as Lewis acid. This behavior is called Lewis acid. So they are electron acceptors, so they are Lewis acids. And electron precise hydrides. Electron precise hydride means there is no extra electron on the central atom, means there is no lone pair, and also there is no incomplete octet, means the octet of the central atom is complete, and it also does not have lone pair of electrons. So like the carbon family, the group 14 elements like CH4, it's an electron precise hydride, because the carbon, it has 4 electrons in outermost shell, and all the 4 electrons are now shared with 4 different hydrogen atoms to form 4 valence bonds and 4 covalent bonds, so total 8 electrons. So the octet of carbon is complete, and there is no extra electron as well. But if you go one group left to the carbon, that is the boron family, like BH3. To look at BH3, what will you see? The BH3 boron has only 3 electrons in its outermost shell, and these 3 electrons are shared with 3 different hydrogen atoms, and so BH3 molecule is formed. And so BH3, 3 bond pairs exist in BH3, means 3 bond pairs means 3 into 2 electrons. Only 6 electrons are there. So it is electron deficient. Its octet of boron is not complete. So it is electron deficient hydride, which is a Lewis acid. There are many. And so boron family elements, or the boron group or boron family group, they form electron deficient hydrides. Carbon family forms electron precise hydrides, and if you go right to the carbon, the nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine families, they are electron rich. They form electron rich hydrides, because if you look at their structure, you will see there are existence of lone pair in those compounds, like water. Water has 2 lone pairs, H2O, and oxygen. A water of oxygen has 2 lone pairs. And ammonia also has 1 lone pair. HF has 3 lone pairs. So these compounds have lone pairs, and their own lone pair exists, and their octet is also complete. They have lone pairs, so they are electron rich. and because of the electron rich, they have extra electrons. So those alone pairs of electrons, they can give any other electron deficient molecules or any element, or sometimes mostly molecules. So they are electron rich. Electron rich means they are Lewis base because they can donate electrons or lone pairs. So let us look these hydrides one by one. Electron deficient hydrides. So these electron deficient hydrides have very few electrons for writing its conventional Lewis structure. To remember Lewis structure that we have seen in chemical bonding. So Lewis structure, conventional Lewis structure, that is central atom has incomplete octet. So if you, even if you do not remember Lewis dot structure or Lewis structure, what you can see simply is the octet of the central atom is not complete, and B2H6, though it is mostly BH3, which is B2H6 is a dimer of BH3. And what we know, two BH3 molecules come to form dimer. Why it comes closer to become form dimer? Because the BH3 octet of boron in BH3 is not complete. To somehow compensate with that thing, it forms a dimer. AlH3, aluminum hydride, is electron deficient hydride. In fact, all elements of boron family is group 13 forms electron deficient hydrides. Group 13 forms electron deficient hydrides. Group 13 is boron family. Group 14 means carbon family. Group 15 means nitrogen family. You can see the periodic table. Therefore, the electron deficient hydrides act as Lewis acids or electron pair acceptors. The electron precise hydrides, as I just read, I have explained it. These hydrides have required number of electrons to write their conventional Lewis structure. They have complete octet with no lone pair of electrons. Carbon family or group 14 forms such types of hydrides, means the electron precise hydrides. For example is CH4, C2H6, C3H8, C4H10, all these are C2H4. These are all electron precise hydrides. These compounds have tetrahedral geometry around central atom. So like you see here, the tetrahedral geometry around central atom, even C2H6, all the carbon has tetrahedral geometries. Electron rich hydrides. Now the electron rich hydrides means these hydrides have excess number of electrons in the form of lone pairs. And these compounds have already complete octet, and since they have complete octet, now the extra electron that is available in the central atom, that is considered as lone pair. So therefore, these compounds will have as Lewis bases or electron donors. Elements of group 15 like means nitrogen family, group 16 oxygen family, group 17 fluorine family form such hydrides. Such hydride means electron rich hydrides. Example HF, H2O, NH3. We know HF. How many number of lone pairs are here? 3 lone pairs of electrons are there on fluorine. Water, 2 lone pairs of electrons on oxygen. Ammonia, 1 lone pair of electron on nitrogen. So they are all electron rich. The presence of lone pairs on highly electronegative elements like nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine results in hydrogen bonding in hydrides. These hydrides. If these atoms are highly electronegative like fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen, so these hydrides will form hydrogen bonds, which leads to association in these molecules. So association will increase, and association will increase means melting and boiling point will increase. And only these elements such as fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, their hydrides form hydrogen bonds. Other elements, when you go down the group, this element like fluorine, if you go fluorine, electronegativity of fluorine is less than fluorine, so hydrogen bonding in fluorine will be much weaker than the hydrogen bonding in HF. The hydrogen, if you look at H2S hydrogen bonding in H2S will be much weaker than hydrogen bonding in H2O. Like NH3, the PH3, if you look at go down the group, the hydrogen bonding in PH3 will be much weaker than NH3. In your book, what will be so high, it is written that only these elements, fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen forms hydrogen bonds. Other elements do not form hydrogen bonds. However, the modern trend, if you look at the current literature, it says that all the elements, if there is difference in electronegativity, and if the atom which is bound to hydrogen has higher electronegativity than the hydrogen, so this hydrogen can form hydrogen bonds and can be involved in hydrogen bond formation. Though this hydrogen bond will be much weaker than the hydrogen bonds that we see usually, the traditional hydrogen bonds. So let us take this question. Would you expect the hydride of nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine to have lower boiling points than the hydrides of their subsequent group members? And give the reasons. So as I said, the nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine, they form their hydrides form hydrogen bonds, and with the hydrogen bonds, or even if the much stronger hydrogen bonds, the association tendency of these compounds will increase. The association tendency of if this compounds is more means the melting and boiling point of these compounds will be higher. And when we will go down the group, though the molecular weight will increase or molar mass will increase, which also affects the which also because of that also melting on the boiling point increases, but the hydrogen bonding which is it's another extra association tendency or power that is decreased, and because of that what we will see the melting and boiling point of these compounds will be highest in their group. So on the basis of let us molecular masses of ammonia, water, and hydrogen fluoride or hydrofluoric acid, their boiling points are expected to be lower because they are lightest hydrides in their group. So what one expect their boiling point will be lesser because you need to provide lesser amount of energy to uplift to evaporate a lighter molecule, and if your molecule is heavier you need to provide higher energy to increase its kinetic energy so that it escapes from the liquid or solid surfaces. So to since they are lighter molecules, so one would expect that one need to provide lesser amount of energy to melt them or to boil them. However, what we see due to higher electronegativity of nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine, the strength of hydrogen bonding in their hydrides will be much stronger. And because of that, the boiling points of ammonia, water, and hydrofluoric acid will be higher than the hydrides of their subsequent group members. Unlike boiling point of HF will be more than boiling point of HCl. Similarly, boiling point of water will be more than H2S. Boiling point of ammonia will be more than pH 3. Now let us look at the metallic hydrides. As I said earlier, we have seen the metallic hydrides, and metallic hydrides means the hydrides they are mostly the hydrides of D and F block elements. D again remember D and F block elements. We know the D block elements means last electron goes while writing electronic configuration goes into D block or D subset, and F block elements last electron goes into F subcell while writing electronic configuration. However, since the D block, these hydrides or metallic hydrides are formed by D and F block elements. However, and why they are called metallic? Because these hydrides can also conduct electricity to a certain extent. So this is what is seen, the metallic hydrides. As we see the ionic halides, they do not conduct electricity. Molecular halides or covalent halides, they are also not, they do also not conduct electricity. However, metallic hydrides, they conduct electricity to a certain extent, though not as efficiently as the parental metal, but they still conduct electricity. So, however, manganese, iron, and cobalt family means group 7, 8, and 9 respectively. Manganese is group 7, iron is group 8, and cobalt is group 9. This cobalt, these three families do not form hydrides. Some elements of other family of D block elements, they do also not form hydrides. And see also the like example like group 6 elements like the chromium family, only chromium form hydrides like CrH. Other elements, the elements which come below the chromium, they do not form hydrides. So these hydrides means the metallic hydrides conduct heat and electricity, though not as efficiently as their parental metal do. That is why they are called metallic hydrides. They are non-stoichiometric and deficient in hydrogen. Non-stoichiometric means they are deficient in hydrogen. Means like if you look at the electrons or something, the hydride formation like MgH2, magnesium has two electrons, so those electrons is given to two different hydrogen atoms, so the MgH2 is formed. CH4, as we seen, the carbon has four electrons in outermost shell, and these four electrons are shared by four different hydrogen atoms, and they are all electrons. They are not hydrogen deficient. BH3 can be electron deficient, or BH3 is not hydrogen deficient. These are hydrogen deficient. Means the hydrogen is not present there in its stoichiometric amount. Stoichiometric amount means according to the valency of this metal. Like TiH, the titanium, the scandium and titanium, and scandium, this titanium, should have it should have formed TiH2, but what it forms effectively, it is TiH 1.5 to 1.8. This can vary. Hydrogen amount of this hydrogen gas in one molecule can vary between 1.5 to 1.8 depending on different compound and the way it is synthesized. Similarly, the lanthanum hydride, it is its molecular formula is LaH 2.87. So hydrogen is 2.87. The valency of lanthanides usually are 3. One would expect that it will form LaH3, but it forms only LaH 2.87. So LaH3, if LaH3 is formed, one would say that it is hydrogen precise, but it is not hydrogen precise, it is hydrogen deficient. Similarly, ytterbium hydride, zirconium hydride, vanadium hydride, this is nickel hydride. Nickel hydride is nickel hydride 0.6 to 0.7. Palladium hydride, where the hydrogen is 0.6 to 0.8, etc. Earlier, these hydrides, the metallic hydrides, were known as interstitial hydrides. So people used to know these hydrides as interstitial hydrides. Why interstitial hydrides? Because when we look at the crystal of the metallic structure of metal, no metals, that means their crystal, metal crystal, so there will be certain voids. Those are called interstitial positions. And people believe that this hydrogen goes and sits there in the interstices or those voids, and they were also called occluded hydrogen because so they thought that the actual lattice of metal is not disturbed. And so why? Because hydrogen occupies interstices or interstitial positions in metal lattice, producing distortion. It might produce a bit distortion, but that doesn't change the lattice type. The lattice type is still there, the same lattice. And because of that consideration, people were believing that these are interstitial hydrides. However, recently it is shown that except for hydrides of nickel, palladium, cerium, and actinium, other hydrides of this class have lattice different from that of parental metal. But nowadays it has been realized that the lattice of these hydrides is different. For many metals, it is much different than the lattice of actual metal. So they are now people believe that this is the actually the compounds, it is chemical compound or a hydride, different kind of hydride of these metals. It is not that a hydrogen is just being absorbed there, it is sitting there at the interstices. The property of absorption The property of absorption of hydrogen on transition metal is widely used in catalytic reduction, means absorption that we consider the occlusion, and this means the formation of these metallic hydrides. And these metallic hydrides, the hydrogen and metal bonds are not that strong, and so these hydrogens can be used in the hydrogenation reaction for the reduction of certain kind of chemical compounds and for the preparation of large number of compounds that we use do in organic chemistry. Like if you look at the Wilkinson catalyst, rhodium is used, the hydrogen gas, occluded hydrogen, the palladium, carbon, that Lindlar catalyst we use, those things you will see later on. The hydrogen of means that this metallic hydride of palladium or metallic hydride of platinum, these are used as the hydrogenating agent in many different kind of organic reactions. Some of metals, example palladium and platinum, can accommodate a very large volume of hydrogens. Why they can accommodate a very large volume of hydrogens? Because you know the platinum and palladium, they are larger in size, and because of their larger size, they can accommodate the more number of hydrogen atoms. Therefore, can be used as its storage media. Means the palladium and it forms hydride, the platinum form hydride. It can absorb a high amount of hydrogen, and so high amount of hydrogen means the hydrogen is quite significant. Mass of hydrogen is quite significant in its amount, and if it is there, one can now extract that hydrogen to produce energy. And so this property has potential for hydrogen storage and as a source of energy. Let us see this question. Can phosphorus with outer electronic configuration 3s2 3p3 form pH5? pH5 means that whether pH5 exists or not. The question is simply whether pH5 exists in nature. The answer is no. Why no? So although what we know, the phosphorus can exhibit +3 and +5 oxidation state both, and pH5 means the oxidation state of phosphorus is +5 here, but pH5 cannot form. This is mostly because if you want to form pH5, one thing is that you have to first break the hydrogen-hydrogen bond. And to break the hydrogen-hydrogen bond, that we call as atomization energy, you need to provide more energy. To at least 3 molecules of hydrogen has to be broken to form one pH5 molecule. So 3 molecules of hydrogen, breaking 3 molecules of hydrogen is 2.5 molecules of hydrogen to form one pH5 compound. So you need to provide more energy. And other than that, what we know that the electron gain enthalpy value for hydrogen do also not favor higher oxidation state of phosphorus. Means phosphorus in +5 oxidation state means you are giving electrons, so electron is transferred or shifted towards the hydrogen, and means the hydrogen has accepted the electron. And since we know the hydrogen is a non-metal, its electron gain enthalpy is also very high. Electron gain enthalpy means means the energy that one is released when one electron is donated or is accepted by one element in its gaseous form. So which is also in this case is very high. Very high means it's a positive value. Numerically, very low means negative, large negative value. Very high means large positive value, or if it is negative, it is very small. Negative value of means the electron gain enthalpy of hydrogen is also very high, and because of these two, what we know, these two, when you add them, it is not negative value. Negative means energy is not released. It means it is not favorable, thermally not favorable, and since it is thermodynamically not favorable, means energy is not released during the process. This compound is not stable, and since this compound is not stable, it doesn't form. This H5. Now let us look at the periodic table and see how different kind of hydrides are being formed by different group elements. And what we know here, the first S block and P block element, the S block elements, group 1 and group 2. And we have seen it forms ionic halide. Ionic halide means barium and magnesium, it forms polymer, and polymer formation means there is a covalent, significant covalent character. So you can consider these as intermediate halides. Sorry, intermediate hydrides means it does have both ionic and covalent characters. And the P block elements, mostly what we have seen, P block elements mostly it forms covalent hydrides or molecular hydrides, and these all the elements when we see they forms molecular hydrides. Only iridium and thallium, which is very electropositive in character, they forms intermediate hydrides. Means these hydrides also have high ionic character, though they also have covalent character, they have high ionic character as well. And the noble gases, we know noble gases are not very reactive. They usually don't form hydrides. They form compounds with very highly electronegative elements like fluorine, oxygen, and so on. And the D and F block elements we have seen, they form metallic hydrides, and F block elements we see lanthanides, actinides, they form metallic hydrides. However, all the D block elements, they do not form metallic hydrides. We have seen this exclusively, these three groups. The manganese, iron, and cobalt, the 7th, 8th, and ninth group, they do not form hydrides. However, other group elements, they do, some of the elements, they do form hydrides, and some of them, they do not. Usage of, if you look at the usage of hydrides, there is high use of hydrides. Means hydrides are extremely useful in our, whether it is the industrial processes or whether it is laboratory or even the energy storage as energy storage material. There are many uses you can find of hydrides. For example, nickel hydride is used in nickel metal hydride batteries. Nickel metal hydride batteries are rechargeable batteries. You might have seen palladium hydrides use the electrodes in cold fusion experiments. Palladium hydrides are also used in hydrogenation. Lithium aluminum hydride, as I have said today, it's a powerful reducing agent and it is used in organic chemistry. Sodium borohydride is also selective and powerful reducing agent. It is also used in hydrogen storage fuel cell. Means hydrogen, it can also be used as a hydrogen storage material. Sodium hydrides, NaH, is a powerful base used in organic chemistry. So NaH is a very strong base, and this strong base is sometimes, if you want to do certain kind of reaction, if you want to extract its uh, proton from there, somewhere, means it is a strong base, so it can extract proton from very or weakly acidic proton as well, like protons of acetone. It's a weakly acidic, but it can abstract. Sodium hydride can abstract those protons as well. So diborane, diborane is B2H6. It is used as a reducing agent, and when you will see anti-Marconi Karp way of reduction, you will see the use of diborane in organic chemistry. Rocket fuel diborane is also used in rocket fuel. Semiconductor dopants. You know, semiconductors, we use dopants, we dope them to enhance their electroconductivity. They are also used as catalyst. The diborans are used in organic synthesis. Also, diborans are used in the formation of pentaborane or synthesis of pentaborane and decaborans. Arsine, you know, like phosphine, PH3, arsine, sometimes say ASH3. Arsine is used for doping semiconductors. Still, stibine means SbH3 is antimony. So antimony hydrides is used in semiconductor industry. Phosphine, which is used in fumigation. Fumigation is the action of process of disinfecting or purifying an area with the fumes of certain chemicals. So you can use phosphine PH3 gas to disinfect certain area. The silane like alkane, the compounds of silicon are called silane, like CH4 is one kind of alkane, so SiS4 is silane. Si2H6 is silane, also silane like C2H6, it is ethane, which is alkane. So silane, many industrial uses of silane are there. They are used in manufacture of composite materials. Composite materials, material made from two or more substances, they are called composite materials. Many times we need those composite materials. Sealants are also used in water repellents. Water repellents means the waterproof materials. There are many watches and other things we use waterproof materials. So these sealants are also used as a water repellent. Ammonia is used as coolant. Coolant means a substance that can be used to remove heat. If you use liquid ammonia means it is at very lower temperature and somewhere in the during a chemical reaction or some even the nuclear reaction somewhere the heat high amount of heat is being produced. So you can use ammonia there, put ammonia up, or not only liquid ammonia, even normal ammonia. It will take that heat, it will go escape, run from that surface. Ammonia is also used in the formation of fertilizers. Ammonia can also be used as fuel. It also has many other industrial applications. Hydrogen sulfides, we know H2S gas. It's a component of natural gas. It is important source of sulfur as well. So natural gas, what the natural gas that we obtain, hydrogen sulfide is there. It is also used important for sulfur or the important source of sulfur. One can extract sulfur from the H2S gas, hydrogen sulfide gas. Chemically, even water and hydrocarbons could be considered as hydrides. So all hydrocarbons and water are there also hydrides, and we know how and where they are used. Water, we are surviving because of the water. Life is evolved in water. Hydrocarbons, all sorts of fossil fuels, and there are many other materials, even vaselines. There are many cosmetics. These hydrocarbons are used. And a notable thing is that all solid, non-metallic, and metalloid hydrides are highly inflammable. Sorry, highly flammable. Means all the solid, non-metallic, or metalloid hydrides are they are flammable. They can easily be burnt. But when hydrogen combines with halogen, it produces acids rather than hydrides, and they are not flammable. So when hydrogen reacts with halogens, it forms acid. They are also hydrides. Not that they are not hydrides, but they are not flammable. I think I should stop here. The water and the H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, those things we'll see in our next class. I'll